And we're back for another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here to have another conversation I'm hoping helps your business grow. I am beyond excited for today's guest. It's not often that we get to have true legends on the podcast. We have occasionally, but this one I'm really excited about. Why? Because we have with us today J. Alexander Martin, the co-founder of FUBU, the current VP of FUBU, an author of many amazing books, and someone who I am really interested to hear a story from today. Jay, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking time. Now, for those of you that are listening, you may or may not know, we tried to do this show earlier this week, and technology was not our friend. So, Jay, thanks for the patience with that. We were trying to tell amazing stories of entrepreneurship, and the internet decided to hate us. So, well, you know, Jay, I'd like to always say no one tells the story better than the founder. Now, last time you mentioned if you had $1 for every time you had to tell the backstory of FUBU, you probably wouldn't need to work ever again. But we got to start there anyway. So you want to give everyone out there listening a little bit of background about who you are and you know what kind of brought you up to this point?
Okay, well, if you say and commit to giving me $2 now, because last time that was $1 you owed me. Now this one I got to say it again, so I got to let the $2.
I'm going to give you 3. I'm going to pay it forward, so later on down the road, if I need you to tell that story again, I'm good.
See, guys, I made some money.
Yep.
You can too. Okay, so let's go backwards. All right, let's go flashback to 1992. Prior to that, Damon John was creating a hat. I was coming home from Desert Storm, and I got out of the U.S. Navy on a medical discharge. I was going to FIT as soon as I got out with the GI Bill, and I won a stipend from a military accident that I was in. I took that money and I pretty much gave it to him, telling him a quote. He asked me, well, hey, I said, listen, Damon, I can take this and turn it into a clothing line, this hat. And he said, well, how? We don't have any money. So with that stipend, I took that $6,000, actually it was $7,000, and I gave it to him. I took up $1,000 and gave him the $6,000, and I gave it to him and said, oh, here we go. Here's our seed money. Let's go. And from there on, we built a multi-billion-dollar company.
That is the most efficient delivery of a billion-dollar company backstory. So thank you there. And, you know, honestly, I've talked to so many different people that have such interesting backstories, including my own business partner who sold a software company for $150 million when he was 29. He hates telling the story. He's like, I like talking about what I'm doing now, what I'm doing going forward, or maybe even some of the things that we didn't do well along the way. So, you know, I get it. So what are you up to now, Jay? Like what is the present state of the world?
Well, the present state of the world, of course, now we have a new president. Prior to our first attempt for the interview, we didn't know what was going to happen. So now I think we're in a state of stability, a state of non-anarchy or non-questions, because now we have a new administration. So we're looking forward to really hopefully opening up the world, tackling this pandemic. And going forward for businesses to be fruitful. We, as far as FUBU is concerned, we have acquired new licensees from Africa to Asia to countries like Dubai, Europe, and we're looking to actually finally get our, what hasn't been in the marketplace in a big way, more in a smaller way. Out there in this year.
When it comes to fashion, Yeah, that's a tough business. It's fickle. Things change quickly. A lot of the players that are in it have controlling interests and don't want new players into it. When you look back and, you mentioned 1992, I was in high school in 1992. Yeah, I'm getting old and, still learning how to hustle. But so many people are interested in fashion. I'm actually a sneakerhead myself. I've got a terrible sneaker problem. By the way, man, I own 50 pairs of gold shoes. I think it's a world-class collection. Yeah, man, I might send you a pair too. So now with that, I've been around it enough to know that it's tough to get into. When you think of a quote fashion entrepreneur, what is that?
Well, one thing anyone has to understand in business, of course, is always the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the bell curve, business go up, business go down. And I think that you really have to be a serial entrepreneur just to actually think about even attempting to do anything. Doesn't matter what the genre of business is, right? So with fashion is a unique thing because you have your, what people don't look at is you have your staples items, and then you have your fashion items. And what people do is, I think more so, is look at the fashion. And I also look at it that way. And I can just give you one phrase. They look at the shiny object, but they never look at how it got shiny. Right. So what I say about that in definition to fashion is more so, you have to have a fine line between, like I said, your staples, which is just with regular items that people want to buy every day at a price point. And then you have to have that high end, or not just high end, but more moderate or even high end price goods that will drive your sales just to get somebody in the door in hopes they're going to buy all your other stuff and keep buying it. Because again, when you design into trends, that trend is here today and gone tomorrow. And the stability of a brand is to be able to keep you going over time. So if you live off of something that is just, oh my God, I have to have that today, and then now everybody has it and nobody wants it anymore, then your business is dead. So that's what I try to tell a lot of the fashion brands. All you people just want to be in the fashion.
So when it comes to a brand, I've always been fascinated with quote brand value, because it's an intangible thing. Like, what's the Google logo worth, on a product or whatever? When it comes to building and maintaining and growing a brand, what are some of the fundamental basics of getting one started? And I like to say, don't sacrifice the long term on the altar of the immediate. Mm-hmm. So, if you don't want to just be a short-term success, like what did you learn? Because FUBU is clearly still out there. It's everywhere. Yeah. And so how do you try to set up a good foundation for that going forward with any brand?
Well, I mean, listen, we could take it all the way back to the fact of just starting the business, period. Just start. I go through this practice of anytime we're doing something is I listen to everyone and anyone that can tell me no. I read as much as I can. I, do the old go on the internet and just kind of, peruse and see what's going on. And I do all the stuff and I try to find every reason why this is going to fail. And then I put it on a whiteboard and I take an exercise of just going to each question and having an answer for that. And once that's done, then I start. In my business, like I said, longevity is key. And a lot of times people start something because not necessarily that's what they want to do. They just started because they think that that's what's the end thing to do. And I think that a lot of people need to get into business for the right reasons. Because again, like I always say, entrepreneurs is not for the faint of heart. And I think I did not answer your question. So what I'd like you to do is to say it one more time.
Give me a couple fundamental building blocks for building brand longevity.
Okay, so, see, that's a funny question. And again, I did sort of answer that question in that, because today's entrepreneur, right, that I have been dealing with, is they don't think about tomorrow. They don't think about today and what sale they could do today. Because I don't think just like a livelihood, a lot of people, they don't, because of their upbringing, they're not in the mindset that they're even going to live after a certain time. You know what I mean? Like the average person is because of the world, because of inconsistencies and things that happen. They don't look at that and they translate that to business. Most business people that I've known, maybe on the higher end or maybe 10, 20 years, removed from us or removed from today's society. I don't see any businesses that even think about being consistent and being in business more than a year. Because what's the average business is closed? Closes in a year or even maybe 2 years. So to stay consistent, you have to, one, change your mindset on that you want to be around. And I think the biggest problem is people can't sustain because they don't want to deal with the problems of business. And like, again, the ebbs and flows, the highs, the lows, the today I have sales. You have to be prepared for that mentally, physically, financially, financially. And
emotionally,
yeah, and they don't. No one looks at that. They don't look at. And again, that's the whole fundamental part about looking at the shiny object. Oh, I have a business now, and everything just should go my way. But how did I got shiny? All those 4 or 5 different aspects that I just mentioned. You have to have the mindset to do that, or to be able to deal with that. Because every day somebody's not going to run into your store and buy something every day. No, every day is nobody's going to go to your e-commerce site and buy every day. And if they do, someone comes in and says, "Okay, I'm going to buy every day." What happens when it gets returned? And they don't look at that. And you have to be prepared for that. And you prepare for every little aspect of what's going on. I have a practice. What I do is I do kind of do things. I do 3 things at one time. I at least try to do that all the time, whatever I'm doing. That way, so if a problem arises, I could be able to deal with two or three different things at one time. So I think those practices and things like that is the real problem, or the root of the problem of why people and how people can't sustain their business throughout.
So I'm that same kind of entrepreneur. I'm doing a lot of different things all the time. Now, a lot of people tell you not to do that. And I don't think I could do just one thing at a time. Do you think that and I mentioned when we tried to record this before, we refer to that as entrepreneurial ADD. We were talking about shiny things, and it gets easy to chase too many of them. Mm-hmm. How do you determine whether something is worth chasing or not?
That goes to the golden rule of anything. If you are making a sale, then obviously I'm doing something right. If someone is going to pay for what you do, then you're doing something right. And that's just simple. You can do something, and either it's a service business, it's transactional, direct to consumer, whatever it is. If you can say, "Hey, I'm doing this," and everybody's like, "That's great," but they're not paying for it, then you don't have a business. You got a hobby. And as soon as someone starts to pay for it, and to the magnitude, or let's say give it a number, it's $10,000 a month. Now you have a business. And I think that's what people need to think about.
Yeah, that path to revenue, I think, is grossly underestimated by a lot of entrepreneurs. And not
to cut you off, I'm not talking about your mom and your dad and your cousin or your friends.
Wait, they can't be my clients?
No, that can't be your clients. No. They can be clients, but I wouldn't use them as the be and end all, because they're going to do it regardless. That's like the mom I want to sing syndrome. I'm in the bathroom and I sound great until I get up on stage.
And just for those listening, just to clarify, in the shower, I do have the voice of an angel. So Maybe we can do a duet, but not in the shower. So, all right. So in 1992, you're getting ready to launch FUBU. You don't even probably realize what you've got at this point. The world is so much different. And it was probably 91 or 92, the first time I ever even saw the internet. Like dial-up modems, AOL discs in the mailbox. Yeah, like mom yelling at you to get offline so she can call dad.
Right.
So getting a brand and anything launching, so things weren't, quote, viral then. Like viral wasn't a possibility. It wasn't an actual thing. E-commerce hadn't evolved. And then you flash forward now to 2021, like how different is it to try to do anything? Like, how did you actually get FUBU out into the market and get people to go, man, this is what I want. This is what I want to wear. I mean, what was the go to market strategy?
Well, the go to market strategy was the not go to market strategy. We pre-marketed all our items prior to, by the means of video, music artists doing their video, because every time that video played, it was like a commercial, because they saw that, you saw whatever T-shirt or whatever, or jacket or whatever on that music, or it may not have been, even if it wasn't on the artist, it was in the video. So it's like a commercial. Then we had the luxury of a man named LL Cool J, James Todd Smith, that most people didn't have, who was on, countless TV shows and did countless interviews and music videos, and also was on the show. And he did something in which no one has done as of today. He was in a Gap commercial wearing our hat, and he spoke of our brand in the actual commercial. So that was, millions and millions of dollars of advertising that we didn't have to pay for, especially in the early early stage of our company. We also would do guerrilla marketing, which we would have, we would go to each store that had our clothing. The gates in New York, there's gates, gray metal gates that every store has, security gates. So we would go to them and say, hey, could we paint on your gate, a mural? And the mural would say, authorized FUBU account, or dealer rather. So if when someone's driving at night, they pass by the store, they'd see, oh, that's an authorized FUBU dealer. Wow. So it's almost like it's advertising, because we wasn't paying for the big massive billboards, but that was our form of billboard. And it didn't cost us much, because we knew, graphic artists that could just spray paint it, right? So for the same amount of money, for less money, we would have, billboards everywhere, all over the city. Other things that we would do is, again, like music videos. Like I said, we'd stand at a music video all day until somebody put it on. We'd take it back, and then we'd wash it and put it to cleaners or whatever, and take it back to the next set and put it on them again. So let's see what other things we would do. We knew a lot of the celebrities, or knew of them. We would go on tour with LL, and as LL, or actually I wouldn't go on tour. I would stay home and work, but they would go on tour, and that way we would bump into a lot of the artists and go, here, put this on, or here, give them something, here, give them something as a gift or whatever. And we just really, just put in the work. There's no one that we can touch, because we were going to be there every day until we get to touch them. And I think now, with today's technology and the internet and stuff like that, it does make everything smaller, and it supposedly should make everything easier. But sometimes when things are too easy, what do? You don't do it. If it's sitting right in front of you, I get to it next time. And the drive that we had to get it done isn't the same drive that I think today's entrepreneur has. They always want, I always want to skip a step. You can't cheat work. It knows who's working. And if you just keep driving and driving and driving and do the things that somebody else is going to do, not going to do, you'll make it. If you take your own, you can't get in somebody else's car and drive with them to where they're going. You have to get in your own car and drive to where you're going. And there's certain philosophies and certain things that we've done and things that we put in practice. We zig when people zag. That's what keeps us in business. We don't necessarily look at what other people are doing to do what they're doing. We look what we're doing to do what we're doing. Because there's times that there's methods and practices that other people will do that will work for them. It may not necessarily work for you. Now, I can take their quote unquote failures, and because I don't never look at things that in a failure, I look at it as a learning experience. I look at, each time there's a problem, or supposedly a problem, use that word, it's like a slingshot and you pull it back and that didn't work. So you pull it back some more, and then you pull it back some more, and you pull it back some more. And then by the time you've pulled it back and you've learned all the things that you need to learn to be successful, the slingshot lets go, and all of a sudden now you're catapulted to another stratosphere. You're catapulted into success, or whatever your viewpoint of success is. And I think success is not necessarily monetarily. I think success is the as you said earlier, and you asked me earlier, longevity, being in business, and sustaining the ups and downs. And I think that's success, because monetarily, if you just make a bunch of money today and then you close tomorrow, what is that doing for you? What is that doing for society? What is it doing for people that you're working for, that are working for you? Because your success isn't really your success. It's somebody else's, because there's people that you rely on you, like, the person that's picking up the packages, the person that is, working for you directly. All these people that are indirectly, related to that, their family's family, so a lot of people don't think about that. They're thinking of a selfish matter if it's only about me and what I make it. No, it's really about everybody else and your legacy and what you're leaving on this earth. And even directly your family, because what you do today is again for them, so hopefully you can leave your business to them and continues on.
I like to say that success demands payment in advance, which I think is what you described. And whether I'm successful or not is up to me to decide in the end. I've had too many people say, "Oh, you're lucky. You've done this and that."
Yeah.
I didn't feel lucky last week when I worked 100 hours. And by the way, speaking of commercials, I should probably mention that today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io, my company, which helps people build software teams quickly and affordably. So maybe the longest I've waited to mention that in a show, but I was glad to have you back on. Now, I mentioned success demands payment in advance, which is something I mentioned in my book, Balance Me, The Realist Guide to a Successful Life. You've written a couple books. Let's talk about those author to author for a minute, because in my opinion, the best part about writing a book is actually finishing it.
Yeah, that's the great part. And I was saying to you when offline that the weird thing about me is, as soon as I finish it, I'm ready to start the next one. And I have to kind of just, kind of step back, at least sell one first before I go off and try to sell the other. But yeah, so I wrote 2 books. The first one was, I keep saying was, I don't know why, is building an empire. Sorry, not building an empire. Money makes me crazy. And like, what do you mean money makes me crazy? And it actually does, to a point. I think a lot of people get to a point, and especially where I was raised, wasn't raised with a silver spoon in our mouths. We wasn't raised in the greatest neighborhood. People around us didn't necessarily have, money or have money values, or our parents didn't actually 100% teach me, what to do with my money and what not to do with my money. So when you at a young age, if you become wealthy, independently wealthy, you tend to overdo it. You tend to buy things. You tend to, over or look at the things that you didn't have and overcompensate for the things for things that you always wanted to have. So, for instance, when I first got my first house, like when I was where I was raised, I had two sisters and a brother, and then my brother was never really around because he was pretty much older. He was adopted as well as I was adopted, and my two sisters were biological to the parents that I was adopted to. They would pretty much, run the TV, because if they wanted to watch it, it was 2 against 1. So it was one of those things. So, growing up, you really, really want to watch, but, you don't want to watch, whatever, was, you got 2 women or 2 girls, kind of picking everything you want to watch, everything. So you want to, I guess, trying to compromise, but there was no compromise. So when I finally got my first home, I put a TV everywhere, in every room. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be watching TV like that anyway, but why did I do that? Psychologically, I did that because, again, I was over. So I wound up spending a lot of money and making a lot of financial mistakes. So that book is to basically tell you that as soon as you get money, you go crazy, and what not to do, and giving you practices on knowing who you are. Because if you know who you are when it comes to your relationship to money, then you know how to do better. Second book is Building an Empire, which is my newest book, which is fairly young in age, about a few months old. I did it prior to COVID, or actually during COVID rather, and launched it in COVID. It's just about the legacy, and it thinks about how to think differently. I think that a lot of books, when it comes to not necessarily entrepreneurship, but just business, kind of they just do this thing called I use this phrase called fifth year old syndrome. Everybody's in 5th grade and everybody's just talking the same thing, and then maybe they'll all get in line and they just say the same thing, which will say the same thing, which will say the same thing. And I think a lot of books just take the last book that they read and go, okay, this is my philosophy, but it's the same philosophy. 1 and 1 is equal 2. Yeah, it is, right? But what I'm doing is saying 1 and 1 is 2, right? That's great, right? And that can happen in this book, right? But let's look at it a different way, right? Let's take 2 and 3, right? 1 and 2 is 3. Let's look at 3 and 2 and 1, right? And add it that way. You know what I mean? Or just whatever. So I just kind of make people just think differently. Don't look at what everybody else is doing. Try to look at what you're doing. Try to get out of your own way of okay, that's working, or getting out of your own way of, because some people say, you know what, I think I want to fish, right? But they may not be anything. They may not say they want to fish. They may say they want to fish, but they may not be a fisherman. They may own a store. Their view should be owning a store that sells fish, not a fisherman. And you kind of have to read the book, because again, it's better described, because when I'm sitting and talking to someone that wants to do something, because I'm always talking people out of what they want to do, or what they think they want to do. And this book kind of moves the fog away, so you can just see who you are and what an entrepreneur really is, and how to be an entrepreneur. Not necessarily how to be an entrepreneur, but how to and how should I describe this? How to make your own path. And I think that's a really, 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 really big problem in today's society, is that everyone is searching for everybody else's path, but that not their own.
Yeah, I said that in talking about books. I wrote one called $1 Million Bedroom, and kind of like you, man, like I started my first business. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any experience. I had a credit card with an $8,000 limit and an extra bedroom in my home, and turned that into $40 million worth of revenue over the coming years. And with that, like you said, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have any people that were showing me how to do it. I had Google.
Yeah.
I figured it out, and I actually, looking back at that, think that it was very valuable to not have other types of influence in there, because I had to figure out my own path. And we like to say, run your own race.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's not about like, I can't compare myself to you and someone else because I'm only me. And one of the things that I think was helpful is, for myself, I've got a really high level of drive. As an entrepreneur, what's your defining characteristic? Like, what's your superpower?
Drive. I drive, like, just like you said, drive. I mean, I'm constantly saying to people, you know, it's drive. You when you're in your car, right, and you're driving, if you just look at everything as drive, and then you also look at everything as a movie. If you look at everything as a movie when it comes to branding, advertising, marketing, and understanding the each one of those, you understand, social media, you understand that you have to look at everything as a movie. When you sit down in a movie, you're looking at it and you're like, wow, what's keeping me here? What is made so interesting? You got a beginning, a middle, an end, and then from that it goes to a sequel, and from that it goes to a sequel, and it goes to a sequel. How could you keep that movie going forever? When you have your brand identity, right? What is that? Once you have your brand identity, and then you're creating your product, each product or each service or whatever it is a movie, and how you bringing people into it, and how they stay interested, and how they coming back.
So I have a question from one highly driven, and I have okay, your strength is also your weakness.
Yeah.
And that drive, you say money makes you crazy. My drive makes me crazy on many days, meaning like it's difficult to turn it off. It's not uncommon for me to sometimes be awake for 2 days because I'm so locked in on whatever's driving me that it drives me crazy. Do you have the same problem? I'm asking for a friend.
No, actually, I do not. For a friend, I don't have that problem. I have this little thing I do, like I said, with the three, do with three things at one time. A lot so that allows me to have this kind of like drawer in the back of my head, and it's not a problem unless you're working on it. So when I'm driving, I'm not thinking about anything else besides driving where I'm trying to go. And then when that's done, I go to my next situation and I drive, and I'm not thinking about the other situation at all. Now I may see a lane to get off the highway, and that may be a lane not necessarily to get off the highway, but to take what I'm doing from on this highway and merge it to another highway. So that's all that is a merge, right? But meanwhile, I see it. I may be able to just look over there and maybe have something come towards me, but I'm always staying focused on what I'm doing at that time, period. Right? And that's how I sustain it, and that's how I keep going. I think I love what I do, and I have so much drive, and I think too much dopamine in my head. That's might have happened. And I'm so driven that I just can't stop. Like, so a problem means nothing to me because I'm happy that there's a problem. That means that I'm doing something. So I'm going to keep constantly going. Now, yes, again, I have to bring it back to, I know it's working when I made $1, and I have this thing where, look, it's just me. I can't spend $1 unless I made $3.
So if drive is the superpower, what's your kryptonite?
I don't know. I don't think I have.
What keeps you up at night? As an entrepreneur, not just as a person.
As an entrepreneur, keeps me up at night.
Like what part of a business or in the past, like what was because there's no such thing as a business without problems.
Well, no, true. I think it's just how you look at it. I think that to be passionate, when you're passionate about what you do, it really doesn't matter. It's almost like a kid, right? I don't have kids, but I live vicariously, right? It's the same thing as the business. It's the same thing as the question in relation to the question that you're saying. If I have a kid and they do something wrong, I don't love them less, right? I don't take them and throw them away. So if you look at your business as a kid, it's going to have ups and downs. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. But again, you're still proud of them. You still love them, and they're still going to be there.
I think that's fair. All right. So here's a good one for you. What's the difference between being a genius and being crazy?
I think a genius is crazy.
That's a good answer. One of my favorites is actually, I've asked that to many high-level creators, musicians, rock stars, all different kinds. The best answer still is who cares? Because it's an outside perspective. For me, my take on it is also I kind of adopted the who cares, because I think they call you crazy until you're viewed as being successful, and then all of a sudden you're a genius, you know. It takes
right, exactly. You're doing crazy stuff, and all of a sudden, because nobody else is thinking of it, right? But all the work and stuff that you put in, and all the sacrifice you put in, and all the stuff that you think you've lost, and all that stuff boils up into a nice little pot, and it cooks up, and all of a sudden, wow, this really tastes good. But you don't know that I've been in the kitchen for 3 days trying to make this stuff, you know. So that's what it is, and all of a sudden now you're a genius.
Yeah, and like I said, they'll call you crazy until they don't. Yep.
Then they want to take everything you just did and go, as another entrepreneur, supposedly, gonna take that and perfect it and go, okay, now we're gonna move with it. And then someone's, you know, so it's really that thing too. You have to understand that if you do something, what you put in the world is not yours anymore, because now it's acceptable for every other entrepreneur to take that and make it even better, or sometimes just do the same exact thing. You know, counterfeiting is it's a form of flattery. It can work hopefully as long as the product is not, inferior.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't have to deal with in the software and technology industry, and that's a big problem in yours.
Exactly.
Yeah, a big one. So, all right. So a lot of times as we start a business as an entrepreneur, we get support. I think a lot of people think they're going to get support from their friends and family, and then they find themselves very disappointed along the way. And a lot of people seem to want to be vocal about how you will fail. How many people told you that you were going to fail on the way to building $1 billion brand?
Oh, no, tons of them. But again, that goes back to me saying I took all that stuff, and I used it as fuel, because, I would write down every reason why they said I would fail. And some of the reasons were very valid. And I would find an answer for it. So some people's problems wasn't my problem. And again, the typical way that everybody ran things and did things, all made sense to them, but we did something that no one was doing. So again, if you just create up a whole new product called the computer, let's just say, right? There's no one before you. So who's to say you're not doing everything right? And if you think that way, and you're going on your own path, your own lane, you're driving your own car, you're not coming up to, an intersection where it's such, with so much traffic, it's too much traffic, and now you're sitting there waiting for someone else to improve on a product that they did, so you can take that product and try to prove on it. You're going off to you're seeing the traffic, and you're going, you know what? I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna go to the right and get off this lane, and I'm gonna go my own route. There's nobody on the highway with you. And that's an entrepreneur. That's the entrepreneur that creates something that no one does, or finds something, a service that 100% people need, and provides that service in a way that which no one else is doing. That's an entrepreneur. The guy that made the wheel, the guy that made the plane, The guy that made the computer, the guy, it goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, it's probably a good time to mention that the first person that was out there saying the world was round, they probably burned at the stake or something like that.
Right.
It's like, he was crazy until he was a genius in the same way. So, well, once again with me today, Jay Alexander Martin, co-founder of FUBU, Vice VP, FUBU, author of multiple books, which I want you to go and buy. Now, before we do the Founders Freestyle, and that's how I end our episodes, I want to encourage everyone listening to check out Startup Hustle TV. That's our new upcoming web series about entrepreneurship, where we're going to show you the real look at entrepreneurship, not just the jets and Lambos and fuzzy bubbles. We're going to show you the days that suck and what the agony is like and all the crap that people go through on the 8 years it takes to become an overnight sensation and a lot of stuff. Check out our YouTube channel with that. Maybe we'll be able to get you on that show at some point, Jay, because I think you've got a lot to talk about and a lot of things to say. Now, I end my episodes of Startup Hustle with the Founders Freestyle. I say my episodes. I'm not the only host of the show. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, make sure to check out Andrew Morgan's talking about Amazon and e-commerce, and Thursdays for Innovate Her with Lauren Conaway. Now, for the Founders Freestyle, Jay, I like to give all my guests an opportunity to take the mic and do exactly that, freestyle. What, in the regards of like, how do you want to close this episode out, and what's the most valuable thing you can say for people that want to follow in your path?
Okay, let's see. The most valuable thing I'd like to say to anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur is to start. Start. And why you keep saying start? Because what people do, a lot of entrepreneurs, is you gather all this information, you do this, you do that, and then you get to a point where, this is not going to work. And you get talked into your own demise. Right? Stop looking at other people's success and say that it's going to be your success. Start measuring your success from your own, by yourself. Right? Stop zig when people zag. And that's about it.
We say it a lot in the promo for Startup Hustle TV. One of the very first lines is getting started. It's the hardest part. And, and it really is. The thing is once you actually start, you have something in motion, you have something you can give and get feedback on. You have and objects in motion often stay in motion. There's a zillion cliche sayings that we could say there. Hey, Jay, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your information and wisdom. For those of you listening, there's a link in the show notes to buy Jay's new book. I want you to go check it out. Look, until you've traveled down the road and through the waters that guys like Jay have, there's just stuff you figure out. And that's, I want to say thanks for sharing your insight in the story. I did write down, it's not a problem unless you're working on it, because I'm going to remind myself of that next time I've got too much clutter and BS going on in my head. Hey, man, I want to catch up with you down the road and check the progress on a lot of things you're doing. So I know you got to jump into the city and get some stuff done. So I'll see you next time, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Round 2 is over the charm, huh?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready whenever you are.
All right.
See you next time.